Good evening, Church Unlimited. Please be seated. I will have to give your regards to the great bishop and let him know that someone has heard of him in New Zealand. He has not labored in vain. It is truly an honor and a privilege to be here with you all. This is my first time in Auckland, and I've had an incredible visit thus far. I've eaten more than I should: lamb, steak, ice cream, butter, and so many incredible things. To be honest, I never really imagined that my story and my life would be used in ministry at all. My father, obviously, has such an incredible presence and such an incredible anointing, and with that comes a bit of pressure to live a certain way. I think the beautiful thing about God's love is it's unconditional, but it's also the thing that's mostly incomprehensible for those of us who don't have beautiful past. It's one thing to talk about the love of God, but when it's time to actively receive it and apply that love to our own insecurities and our own wounds, that's where we begin to struggle a bit. And for me, that struggle was such a process that I never imagined that it would land me here because of that process. And when I started a blog a few years ago that I really never imagined that anyone would see, I was approached a couple of years later to write a book detailing my own memoir, my own journey to understanding who I am and God, and loving myself beyond my own flaws, scars, and mistakes. But before I could write that book, I needed a little bit of inspiration. There's nothing like knowing that you haven't been in trouble alone. And some of the inspiration for me writing that book came out of the book of Ruth, and I wanted to share with you all a little bit of that scripture and how Ruth's story really helped me to come to grips with my own story. And prayerfully, when I close this evening, you will not just see pieces of Ruth's story or my story, but you'll look and see parts of your own. So in Ruth 1, 7-8, it says, "Therefore she went out from the place where she was, and her 2 daughter-in-laws with her. And they went on the way to return to the land of Judah. And Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, 'Go, return each to her mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me.'" It's interesting at this point in the text that though Naomi has lost her husband and her 2 sons, that when she's having this conversation with her daughter-in-laws, whose names were Ruth and Orpah, that she groups herself in with the dead. She says that, "As may the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me." I don't know about you, but I've had these instances in my life where a part of me had to die. That I was in a situation or a relationship or facing a challenge or a mistake that required a part of me no longer remain. And the difficult thing about losing something and having a part of you die is that you have to survive. In spite of your pain and in spite of what you've lost, that you don't get to die with the thing that hurts you. So for me, when I am growing up in this Jake's household and I'm learning that there are a lot of things I don't quite understand about God and church and how can you have a relationship with God but still struggle as a person, and it seems like everyone has it all together but me, and I come into church and everyone's worshiping and no one's talking about the things that had to die before they had that relationship with God. We do such an incredible job of coming in and getting dressed up and worshiping, but what do we do with the people who don't have it figured out just yet? There are so many places outside of the church that welcome you within your own dysfunction. And I don't know if this is true in Auckland, but sometimes you come into church and you have to feel more perfect than you felt when you were in the club. Wait, I know you all don't go to the club. I mean, that you have to feel like when you come in here that you're not hurting anymore. So how then do we really teach that his strength is made perfect in our weakness when we're all pretending we're already perfect? That I had this one encounter with God and all of a sudden it clicked and I got everything right. See, I couldn't afford to believe that, and so instead of pretending, I just decided to not try at all. Which is even more dangerous than trying to at least attempt to live a life that you think God would bless. And so I'm growing up in church, and this is such a beautiful congregation, and I love how we all do church a little bit different. So I'm going to tell you all how we do a little church in Dallas. Do you all know what shouting is? Yeah. Yeah. Shouting requires, it's a rhythmic type of praise in which the spirit is high, and I'm not exactly sure what happens because I'm going to be very honest, I don't know how to shout. I don't know if your feet start burning or how you kick off the shouting. It seems like something, I really want to learn how to do it, but have you ever seen Double Dutch where you don't exactly know like when to jump in the ropes? That's how shouting feels at the Potter's house. That if you don't really have rhythm, then you don't always know exactly when to jump in. And so what you're supposed to do when you can't shout is at least, clap. But once again, rhythm is a challenge that God is yet working with me on. And so I don't exactly know how to clap on beat either. And when you're in church, that we're joking about it now, but when everyone around you is shouting, and you don't know what to shout about or how to even pretend to shout, you don't exactly understand what's going on. That is increased even more when you go into the restroom and see the very person that was shouting talking about someone on the front row. And you begin to wonder, if God is so great, why are church people so mean sometimes? And because that was the only world that I had ever known, I didn't feel a part of it. And I certainly, in my book, Lost and Found, I said I did not want to be a part of the tales of the pews. The one that everyone's whispering about. When you see that one person who goes to the altar every Sunday and then you notice that people are talking like they was just at the altar last Sunday. God didn't do it last week. Jesus. I didn't want that to be me. And so I tried to stay away from the reality that though I was in the Jakes family, I didn't always feel very Jakes. And so I tried to fit in any group that I could. And the dangerous thing about having a mandate that you don't exactly understand is that you're often thrust into leadership before you're even ready. And so here I am as a teenager still trying to find my own identity with people placing labels on me. Are you going to be the next Bishop Jakes? I can't shout, I can't clap, my voice is very soft. I don't think I'll be hooping or hollering across any stage. I can't sing, I won't be leading praise and worship. I don't know who I'm going to be in this family. Have you ever had life try to label you before you could figure out who you were yourself? Or had your family or your culture or your group define who you are while you were yet in the process of understanding yourself? So this process was made even more difficult when I found myself trying to fit in with my peers and we all started getting boyfriends and kissing. And then I'm 13 and now pregnant. and Bishop Jake's daughter. And you cannot hide a pregnancy. When everyone else had their own struggle and their own issue, they got to go home and no one had to know about it because they could put on a mask and pretend that they were okay. But what happens when your struggle is standing beside you? Pregnant at 13, had my son at 14 years old, and I'm still supposed to hold my head up high. When people cringe when they hear your truth, when you cringe when you hear your truth. How do you deal with the death that happens as we try to survive in life? That now my self-esteem is gone. That now I no longer have any confidence, and now the stares and the rumors and the gossip are crucifying me more than the mistake itself did. What do you do when life doesn't spare its rod on you? And you're supposed to come into church and worship, but you can't worship through the shame. So you learn the motions and learn the words to the song, and you learn how to come and do church, but you never learn how to really have a relationship with God. And when we're wounded, the easiest thing for us to do is to push love away. You see, because love requires us to look past our flaws and past our mistakes and still believe that we're worthy. That is the beautiful part for me when we see Naomi in this text, is that she started on the road back to Judah with Ruth and Orpah. They say, we're going to come with you, and she travels for a bit, and then she tells them to go back to where they came from, that she would rather go at it alone. Isn't it interesting how we can make ourselves bitter? How we can push away anything that reflects that we've lost something. You see, because the reality is that Orpah and Ruth were Naomi's daughter-in-laws, but they were also a reminder that she had lost her sons. When life gives you these reminders over and over again that you have lost something. See, she wasn't whole enough to realize that though she lost her son, she still had something standing, because sometimes our pain makes us solely want to be a victim and not a survivor. Literally, the scripture says that Naomi survived her two sons, but we see her telling Orpah and Ruth that they have dealt kindly with the dead and with me. Here's the other thing, is that she also robbed Orpah and Ruth from their own reality, which is that they had lost something too. Have you ever called someone and had the who had the worst day debate, but like on the low? Yeah, I had a flat tire. You had a flat tire, girl? I ran out of gas. You ran out of gas, girl? All my tires were gone when I got out of the car. They just fell off. What do you do when you're in so much pain that you don't even want other people to feel anymore? I tell people that we all think we have this special kind of hurt. Like you couldn't possibly understand what I've gone through. Yeah, healing was possible for you, and the Lord can deal kindly with you, but he can't deal kindly with me because I have this special, unique kind of pain. When we have enough faith and hope for someone else, but none for who we are. We believe that God can do exceedingly and abundantly above all that we may ask or think, as long as we don't ask or think it. We know all the scriptures, but when it's time to activate that in our own wounds and in our own situations and our own circumstances, we're too afraid to let God in. Because it would admit that maybe we weren't as okay as we led everyone to believe. We have this get over it generation. That's what we see Naomi basically telling Orpah and Ruth, that you all go back to your mother's home and the Lord deal kindly with you when you all are able to get over it, but I can't. And so we force people to pretend that they're healed instead of allowing them the beauty of the process that comes with God doing a work within us. Or worse, we find ourselves like Naomi, just saying that we'll go at it alone. And that's where I was after I had my son. I knew, okay, well, I don't fit in church now. And now I have this beautiful baby boy who I have to somehow make him proud that I'm his mother, even though I'm not exactly sure what he should be proud of. And so I found myself on this fast track trying to graduate from high school early. And I managed to graduate from high school early. And then I need to go to college and I need to take all of the classes possible in college. And in each attempt that I had at trying to clean up and trying to rush through this process, it fell apart time after time again because I was trying to fix a mess that I had gotten myself into. And I never once stopped and asked God for help. Somehow I felt that if I could fix my life, that I would then hand it over to him. Isn't that crazy how we feel like we'll get our lives together over here on the side and then we'll give it to God? Like God doesn't have time for us. He breathed breath into us. He is the very rhythm of our heartbeat. He smiled when he created us. Yet when we do something that makes ourselves frown, we imagine that somehow he could no longer be proud of what he created. Yet our breath is a very promise that he still has hope for us. I have this belief that life is designed to drain us of our hope. That we're going to have obstacle after obstacle and challenge after challenge. And it is our mandate as believers to rise to the occasion of love, of trusting God's love. That in spite of what we've gone through and in spite of what we've experienced, that God still has hope for us. But if you're like me, it's difficult to believe that, and so you try to create your own hope. And how do we do that? We pour hope into situations that are hopeless. As if somehow, if I can revive another person or if I can pour hope into this situation, then I will be validated enough to know that my existence still means something. We often turn relationships or opportunities that were meant to teach us something into charity. We make other people our gods. We pour all that we have in them just so that they can say, you're okay. You're still lovable. I see all of who you are, and I'm okay with that, because at the end of the day, we don't understand who we are and we don't love who we are. And if another person would say it, then maybe we could believe it. Have you ever been so insecure that you just needed another person to be your stability? Some relationships, some friendships, some degrees, some jobs, some validation that though I've been broken, that I still have worth. We abuse abnormal use of a person to feed our own insecurities. All because we're too afraid to trust what we've heard all along, which is that God's grace is sufficient for us. And so I found myself looking for other people's grace. And in the toxic relationship that I was in, where I found myself suffering, hoping to be someone's savior, hoping that if I could save someone else, that would somehow save me. Yet I kept drowning. Codependency masquerading as love. You see, because love is supposed to inspire you to become better, but codependency cripples you. Doesn't help you grow. It doesn't help you heal. It just makes you feel a little bit more comfortable with being insecure. And so here I am at 19 years old trying to do the right thing in college, but failing miserably in college. Because I wasn't in school because I really wanted to pursue this education or believed it was possible. It was just another mask that I thought would cover up the fact that I was still ashamed of being a teen mom. So I'm in school and I meet someone who's just as broken as I am. And we fall in love not with one another's hope and not with one another's courage and not with one another's bravery. We fall in love with one another's brokenness. I love you because you're broken just like me. And it wasn't that we wanted to heal together either. It wasn't that we really believed that God was in the center of it. It just made us feel better about not being broken. And that is the beauty of having authentic churches, like I feel the presence of God, is because when you are surrounded by authentic believers, there is no judgment about your brokenness. And if we are not careful, we will judge people right out of the doors of our church and into harm's way. Because they will be looking for somewhere where they can come in and say, I'm hurting. And so I'm in this relationship, and, as I'm not sure the dynamics of living here, but where I'm from, if you've had a child out of wedlock, the one thing that you can do to fix it is just get married as soon as possible. It doesn't matter if you're in love or not, if it's right or not. If you get married, at least you won't be embarrassed about it anymore. And so I'm in this marriage, and I knew long before the marriage that it wasn't going to be a healthy one, but it was more important to me to look healthy than to be healthy. And so over and over again, these attempts at me creating a mask were ripped off over and over again. Dropping out of college because my grades are sinking. So now all that I have left is this relationship that I know isn't really great for me, but I can't afford to say I failed at college and I'm a teen mom and nobody wants me. How interesting it is that we look for love in all of the wrong places while God's love is there all along. We just don't trust it. We just don't trust that his love could really apply to our situation. Yeah, he was able to love so-and-so, but what she did wasn't as bad as what I did. Yeah, he was able to love Pastor, but that's because Pastor knows every word of the Bible. It's like Google, like he just knows every single word of the word, and I don't know the word, and if I don't know the word, then God can't love me. So here we are, lost in a world that we created on our own, with no help, no guidance, no wisdom from God, trying to pretend that we found our way after the pain. We're all trying to be survivors. But the key to surviving is to really be alive after whatever happened to you happened. That we spend so long focusing on what hurt us that we never really check to see who we became after the hurt. That maybe we were broken and maybe we were damaged, but maybe there was wisdom underneath that. And maybe I'm strong enough now to apply the wisdom of before. Maybe I don't have to be afraid of being that person again. Maybe I don't have to be ashamed that I was that person in the first place because I needed that person to be who I am today. When will we stop forsaking the footsteps that it took for us to come into having an encounter with God? When will we stop judging ourselves long enough to receive God's grace? See, the reality is that most of us aren't looking for a license to do whatever we want. The reality is that most of us are punishing ourselves over and over again for some things that happened 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. Generational punishment. In our families, in our lives, in our communities, generations of punishing our truth. The very building block that God needs to build a monument for his glory is our truth, yet we're too ashamed to admit who we really are. And so for me, my breaking point came when I realized that I could no longer keep pretending and living this facade. Is when I shared with you, I'd started a blog, and at the time I was still married to my previous husband, and he was expecting a child with another woman. And I was at a critical point in my life because I had to make a decision on whether or not I could afford another public mistake in church. Can I divorce someone? Can I look like I got it wrong again? When I'm trying so badly to look like I have it all together, can I admit that I'm still hurting, that I'm still broken, that I thought I had it figured out, but I must have gotten it wrong, that I really didn't ask God what to do with my life, that I was working on it and I was going to give it to him, but now I've made an even bigger mess than I was in before? Can I afford to be that honest with God? Can I afford to bear the stare of other people? See, the beautiful thing about being connected in groups of people is that your story may be the story for a little bit, but someone is bound to do something else that kind of gets the spotlight off of you. And once the spotlight is off of you and you know that you've done something that could potentially bring the spotlight back on you, you really have to decide whether or not you can withstand the judgment of people. And so I had to ask myself a question, and that question was, are you going to make people's opinion your God? Are you going to live your life dictated by the opinions of others? Or are you going to be humble enough to admit that you really need me in this situation? In order for God to have full reign and full dominion of your life, you may have to unravel all of the things that you created trying to fix yourself. That many of us have performed our own surgeries and had no clue what we were doing. See, the beautiful thing about handing God over our lives is that he is the master surgeon. That he knows exactly how much pain we can bear, even when we don't. Some of us are broken over wounds we self-inflicted. Some of us are hurting over wounds we self-inflicted. I got myself into this mess. It would be so easy to blame someone else. I would love to blame someone else. But what do you do when you created your own storm? Created the clouds and felt the raindrops from your own storm of depression, your own storm of insecurity, your own storm of low self-esteem. When we had the umbrella of grace hovering over us, that we chose instead to live our lives in such a way that we couldn't trust the very God we said we loved. And so I have to make this decision on whether or not I'm going to be able to stay married, and whether or not I'm going to be able to take the opinions of other people again. And I will tell you, one of the final breaking points for me was when I was at the time living in Virginia, and I was trying to figure things out, and I'm still going through the motions and pretending, and I'm cooking dinner, and my ex-husband now, gave the story away, there you have it, is helping getting my daughter ready for bed, and I look outside and I see his car running, and which is quite interesting, because if you're inside, your car doesn't need to be running. And so I kind of knew immediately that there was going to be another woman in the car waiting for him. And so I tried to have a pep talk with myself, if you will, and that pep talk was a little bit something like, don't be yourself if there's a woman out there. That means don't be violent. Don't, because sometimes you have to mentally prepare yourself to not be yourself, And so I went out there, and I had forgot the pep talk when I had got out there, because it's one thing to think something, it's another thing to see something, and it was all very confusing for me. All I know is that by the time they called the police on me, that I was very confused as to what to happen, and the officer told me, what seems to be the problem here, ma'am? And I said, well, my husband brought his girlfriend to our house, and I had a problem with that. And the officer goes, I see how that could be an issue. I'm going to go talk to them. And I was like, that would be perfect. If you would go talk to them. And as much as I wanted to be angry at him and angry at her, and I wanted to be a victim, a part of me knew that I had to take ownership for the fact that I knew what I was getting myself into. That I couldn't afford to be the victim any longer, because I was the one who victimized myself. When I chose to not believe that I was still worthy, that my life still had value, that I was more than what hurt me, that I could still really, honestly, and truly hold my head up high, and that I could become God's love here on earth if I could only open up enough to believe in myself again. I wanted to so badly just to write this book, Lost and Found, where I blamed this person and blamed that person and said, well, and then God did this to me, and then I no longer had to blame them, and isn't God good? But the reality is that there's a certain level of ownership that we must take in order to be healed. And that ownership comes with recognizing that we are honestly and truly more than what hurt us. Yeah. That our stories and our lives are not all the same. They have unique DNA. Yeah. Unique DNA for grace. I don't have to know your story to know that you have something. People ask me, you get up there and you just tell your story, and I tell them it's not easy, and sometimes I still do it afraid, and I get nervous, and I might tremble, but I remember that we all have something. Whether we're sitting here at Church Unlimited, or at the Potter's House in Dallas, or One Church in Los Angeles, or out in the middle of the street in Idaho, that we all have something that broke us in life. And sometimes it was something we did ourselves, and other times we didn't really have a choice. It just happened to us, but it still hurt. And there are no levels of pain that excuse us from grace. There are no levels of pain that excuse us from forgiveness or redemption, or more importantly, restoration. What if restoration exists for the part of you that still makes you cringe? What if one day you look back over your life and you're okay with every detour and every turn you had to make to get you to this point? That somehow, in spite of what you told yourself and what others may have told you about who you were, that you were right where you should have been all along. That God saw your ending while you were right in the thick of things. That He understood that your life was still going to have value after the pain, and that pain was there to serve you. But you were so ashamed of the pain that you missed its purpose. The wisdom and the beauty and the intelligence that comes, and the compassion, more importantly, the compassion that comes with understanding we're all a little bit broken. And I don't know what your brokenness is, but I know that God's love can touch it. And I don't know what your struggle is, but I can make you this promise that once you overcome this struggle, that there is another one waiting for you. Sorry, guys. I really wanted to tell you today that you were going to slay this giant, You're going to get your slingshot. And Goliath was going to come tumbling down, and that was going to be the last battle you ever fought. But because God is yet working on us, that means that work is going to require some banging, some hammering, some shredding away, some breaking, some suffering. But that suffering is going to work out for your good. I am in a much better and healthier and God-loving marriage now. And what I have learned about being in real beautiful love is that it makes you very happy. And when you get very happy, whenever you go out to eat, it's a celebration. Like you need dessert and steak, because salad doesn't just express happiness. It's What I'm saying is that being in love makes you fat. And not fat, just lovable. And because being in love can make you a little bit thick, this is what I also learned, that stairs are difficult to run up to when you've gained 10 pounds, that it hurts a little bit. And then I decided I was going to get back in the gym. I was going to go to the gym in New Zealand, but I forgot my shoes. This is like so convenient. But when I get back home, I'm going to get back in the gym. And this is what I realized, that eating whatever I like and as much of it as I like hurts a little when I have to run up the stairs or do that little light jog around the house and you're out of breath from the living room to the kitchen. But also being in the gym hurts too, because you have to really go hard in the gym when you know you've been eating a lot. Like you had to be an Olympian and an athlete when you go in there, because you don't want to look like that one person that hasn't been in the gym. Let me testify for a minute. You turn the treadmill up just a little bit higher than you can handle, and it's all good the first 2 minutes of it. But when you realize you set it for 30 minutes, you have to like ease the speed down without anyone looking. Yeah, that was just my warm-up. I'm going to really set the speed now. What it taught me, though, is that either way, we're going to hurt a little. Yeah. But you can pay the price for what hurts you when it makes you better. Yeah. And that is what happens when we become sold out for God. Is that we begin to really understand that it doesn't mean that we're going to live this life where we avoid all pain. but rather that we're going to have to be like Job and really and truly believe that though he slay me, yet shall I trust in him. Because I know these lashes, these wounds, this slaying is going to make me better. And because it's going to make me better, I can pay the price of surviving. And that is what I want to encourage you all to do as you go about your own lives and you face your own past and you face the giants that are yet to be revealed in your life. That you recognize it's going to take tremendous work. At the time that I married my incredible, amazing husband, I was like Miss Independent Woman, like with a ringtone and everything about it. And I was like, you are getting the real deal Holyfield, baby. You better... I've finally fallen in love with myself. I finally know who I am, and I'm proud of who I am. And I feel as together as I was on that level. And then I recognized that the new dimension that I was on, the new level in our marriage, would require that I go even deeper into myself. And now I have someone who's really challenging me to grow in love and grow in Christ, which is really difficult when you were like, already together. And it's like I worked so hard to get to this level where I had everything figured out, and now you're telling me I'm not perfect and I'm just not able to receive that right now. What? I have an attitude sometimes. Listen, attitude is good for you. It teaches you something, and you can't even justify anymore who you once were. That as God takes us to the new level, that there are going to be moments like we find with Naomi, where you've been stripped of everything you thought you knew about yourself. And you're having to trust God with who you are now. And the beautiful, gracious thing about our God, and as we learn in the book of Ruth, is that Naomi had a Ruth with her. Sometimes God will send someone in your life who has keen perspective on what you need in the moment. That it may be your pastor, it may be someone you follow on social media, or it may be your husband who helps you to see areas not only where you need to grow, but that you won't do it alone. And in the book of Ruth, Ruth makes a commitment to Naomi, and she says, where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. When you find yourself as healed and as whole as you can possibly be in your walk with God, know that there may require a bit more breaking, a bit more of a struggle. But you have to be connected with people who understand who your God is, who have enough faith to believe when you feel like giving up, who refuse to let go of you when you're fighting for your freedom. Because the reality is that there are some battles we do not have to fight alone. And if we don't have to fight them alone, why waste our strength when God has sent us help? His love, His guidance, His grace, His promise to order our steps is His commitment to being with us every step of the way. And we don't know who we may lose in the process, or who we may have to become, or who we will be connected to in order to make this journey more worth it. But we have to be open to hearing from Him first. Not our insecurities, not our struggles, not our fears. But His love and His faithfulness must be the voice that guides us throughout our lives. That the more that we're willing to say, I don't have it all figured out, so I'm really counting on you, the better off we're going to be. Our plans are no match compared to His. His will is so much greater than ours. And we have to be in constant reminder of who he is. Not just who he will be in our lives, but recognizing that his hand was on us the entire time. Many of us should be in jail or dead or not, certainly not in church. I don't have to know your testimony to know that some of you, it's a miracle that you're in here on a Sunday night. I'm just going out on a limb here. But some kind of way, because his hand was hovering over us, above our depression and above our insecurities, that his hand was yet hovering over us, that he was protecting us all along the way, means that he has value for this very moment. And it is our job, our opportunity, and our great pleasure to be obedient and to surrender in his presence. Would you stand with me as I prepare to close? You know, it is not often that a girl like me, who was as insecure and as fearful as I am, has an opportunity to travel literally across the world to share my story. But I know that it is only because of the grace of God that this opportunity exists for me. That had it been left up to me, I would have never chosen to share my pain or to share my fears because I was afraid of the judgment. But when I look back over my life now, I recognize that I learned at a very early age to withstand rumors and opinions, because when you're a teen mom, you kind of get tougher. And when you've had certain things happen to you, it teaches you to not really care what people think. And then I realize now that maybe I had to learn that at an early age so that I could share it in moments like this. I don't know what happened to you. I don't know what courage is being built inside of you, what faith is overflowing inside of you. But I know that true alignment with God comes with bringing all of who you are into your relationship with him. Even the things that you may be ashamed of, the family secrets that no one dares to say, maybe the very intimate conversation that you need to have with God to unleash your healing. It is my prayer that during our time together that you not just heard my story or heard Ruth's story or heard Naomi's story, that a part of you heard a little piece of God whispering into your soul saying, as I have been with them, I am with you also. That you don't have to cry or be ashamed or be afraid any longer, because as I was with them, I am with you also. Let whatever seeds that have been sprinkled throughout our conversation take such incredible root that you see the fruit of it blossoming in your spirit, in your own walk with God, in your own faith, that it will be strengthened because you had the courage to be authentic and genuine and unapologetically broken so that you can be undeniably healed. Thank you very much for your time.